Before anything in your life can fall into place, something inside you must shift. There's a deep truth that most people overlook in their pursuit of success, peace, and fulfillment. Your inner world shapes your outer world. The condition of your mindset, your thoughts, your self-talk, your discipline, these are not minor background details. They are the blueprint, the design. Everything you're building externally is a direct reflection of what you're allowing to grow internally. When you start focusing on yourself, really focusing, not in a selfish way, but in a purposeful, intentional way, you begin to notice that what seemed out of reach starts moving towards you. That's because your energy, your presence, your mindset begins to shift. You're no longer reacting to life. You're responding from a place of grounded wisdom. You're no longer desperate for control over outcomes because you've taken control over the one thing you actually can master, yourself. And this isn't about being perfect. It's not about having all the answers. It's about choosing growth when you feel stuck. It's about seeking wisdom when you're surrounded by noise. When you focus on yourself, you're not running from the world. You're preparing to face it with clarity and strength. You stop chasing validation and begin living from alignment. You start feeding your spirit with truth instead of feeding your ego with attention. That shift is everything. Here's the thing, most people try to fix external problems with external solutions. They switch jobs, end relationships, start new ventures, buy new things, but the same patterns keep showing up because the root problem was never the circumstances. It was the internal state of the person walking through them. A chaotic mind will create chaos, even in peaceful situations, but a disciplined, focused, and healthy mind will create peace, even in the middle of storms. When you focus on yourself, you begin to recognize your own patterns. You catch the moments when you're triggered, when you're doubting yourself, when you're making excuses. And instead of running from that awareness, you use it. You confront it. You grow from it. That's how transformation happens. Not in the spotlight, not on the stage, but in those quiet, private moments where you choose to take responsibility for your growth. And let's talk about responsibility for a moment. Because when you focus on yourself, you stop blaming others. You stop waiting for someone to rescue you. You realize that your life isn't in someone else's hands. You take ownership. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can I learn from this? That shift in mindset changes everything. It empowers you. It frees you. It gives you the authority to build a life on purpose, not by accident. This kind of inner focus doesn't mean you ignore others or isolate yourself from relationships. It means you bring the best version of yourself into those relationships. You show up with more patience, more grace, more love, because you've first shown those things to yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't lead others well if you're not leading yourself first. The more whole you are, the more powerfully you can impact others. And the truth is, this isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily one. Every day you wake up, you have to choose to focus on what you can control, your attitude, your effort, your response to challenges. You have to choose to stay grounded when distractions are everywhere. You have to choose to stay aligned with your values when temptations try to pull you away. This is the work. This is where the change happens. As you keep focusing on yourself, you'll notice something incredible. The things that used to stress you out don't carry the same weight anymore. The opinions of others lose their grip. The setbacks don't shake you like they once did. You begin to walk with a quiet confidence, not because life is easy, but because you are becoming stronger, more focused, more intentional. And when you reach that place, you don't have to force things to fall into place, they just do. Not because you manipulated outcomes, but because you became the kind of person who naturally attracts what you've been praying for. You developed the character to carry the blessing. You cultivated the discipline to maintain the breakthrough. You did the inner work that created outer result. And if you stay consistent, if you keep choosing growth over comfort, faith over fear, responsibility over blame, you'll begin to see that focusing on yourself was never a selfish act. It was the foundation. It was the seed. It was the beginning of everything good that was meant for your life. Keep going. Keep growing. Everything is falling into place. There's a reason why so many people feel stuck, even though they're constantly moving. They're doing things, staying busy, trying hard, but they're not going anywhere. That's because movement without discipline is just distraction. Real progress begins the moment you decide to master yourself. That's what focusing on yourself truly means. Developing self-discipline, building structure around your vision, and aligning your daily habits with your destiny. Self-discipline is not about being rigid, it's about being free. Most people think freedom is doing whatever you want, whenever you want. But that's not freedom. That's chaos with a smile on it. True freedom is having the ability to choose what's right, even when it's hard. It's having the strength to say no to distractions so you can say yes to purpose. Discipline gives you that power. It's the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Without it, your goals will always stay goals, never reality. When you focus on yourself, you start to realize how much of your life has been shaped by impulse instead of intention. You begin to see the patterns, sleeping in when you said you'd get up early, putting off the hard things, giving your energy to things that drain you instead of things that grow you. And in those moments, you have a choice. You can stay in that cycle or you can break it. You can start showing up for yourself, not just when it's convenient, but every single day, especially when it's not. That's what discipline looks like. It's not glamorous. It's not always exciting, but it's powerful. It's waking up and doing the work even when no one sees it. It's pushing yourself to stay consistent when your emotions want to quit. It's becoming the kind of person who can be trusted with success because you've trained yourself to be faithful with the small things. This is where most people give up, not because they're incapable, but because they're impatient. They want instant results from a process that takes time. But breakthrough isn't an event. It's a byproduct of consistent effort. The people you admire, the ones who are thriving, focused, grounded, they didn't get there by chance. They got there through discipline. They made decisions every day to choose growth over comfort, structure over impulse, focus over distraction. You see, when you focus on yourself, you start to value your time more. You stop wasting it on things that don't align with your purpose. You stop giving your energy to people and habits that don't match your vision. You begin to treat your life like it matters, because it does. You become intentional with your thoughts, your words, your choices, and that's when things begin to shift. Discipline teaches you how to navigate life with stability. It gives you the ability to hold on when everything around you is trying to pull you off course. It's not about being perfect, it's about being consistent. It's about having a standard for your life and refusing to lower it. And when you start living like that, the results will speak for themselves. People will wonder what changed. They'll think it was luck, and they'll say, you got a break, but you'll know it was discipline. Quiet, consistent, focused, discipline. And this kind of discipline doesn't just change your schedule, it changes your identity. You begin to see yourself differently. You're no longer someone who just tries. You're someone who trains. You're no longer someone who starts and stops. You're someone who finishes. That shift in identity fuels your momentum. Suddenly, you're not just doing things because you have to. You're doing them because of who you are. One of the greatest gifts you can give yourself is self-respect. And that comes from doing the things you said you would do, even when it's hard. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you build trust. You stop needing validation from others because you've already validated yourself. That internal confidence built through discipline is what allows everything else to fall into place. And it will. When you focus on yourself, when you stay disciplined, the right opportunities begin to align with your preparation. You stop chasing things that aren't meant for you. You stop being thrown off course by every obstacle. You begin to move with clarity and purpose, and people can feel it. You don't even have to announce it. Your consistency speaks louder than your words ever could. So if you're in a season where it feels like nothing's changing, don't give up. Keep building. Keep showing up. Keep doing the work that no one sees. because that work is creating a version of you that's strong enough to hold the weight of your calling. That's where real success comes from, not from a lucky break, but from a disciplined life. Keep showing up with intention, everything is falling into place. One of the most damaging things we do to ourselves, often without even realizing it, is compare. We compare our progress, our success, our appearance, our calling, our relationships, our pace, and in doing so, we kill our own momentum. Comparison is a silent thief. It sneaks in not to inspire, but to distract and discourage. When you're focused on someone else's path, you stop walking your own. You can't build your future while staring at someone else's highlight reel. Focusing on yourself means breaking free from that trap. It means choosing to silence the noise long enough to hear your own voice, to trust your own timing, to value your own growth. Because the truth is, no one else is running your race. No one else carries your purpose. What's meant for you isn't based on someone else's timeline. It's based on your obedience to what you were called to do. That's why comparison is not just unhelpful, it's dangerous. It pulls you out of alignment. It shifts your focus from purpose to performance, from growth to gossip, from identity to insecurity. When you compare, you lose clarity. You start measuring your worth by someone else's outcomes. You see their success and wonder what's wrong with you, but you're asking the wrong question. The question isn't, why are they ahead? The question is, am I being faithful with where I am? Because the moment you stop comparing is the moment you can start fully living. You can start appreciating the season you're in. You can start maximizing your own gifts instead of mimicking someone else's. Comparison leads to striving, and striving disconnects you from purpose. You start chasing applause instead of pursuing alignment. You make decisions based on impressing others rather than expressing your authentic self. And here's the hard truth. When your identity is built on comparison, it will crumble with every win someone else experiences. But when your identity is built on inner focus, discipline, and growth, you'll be able to celebrate others without questioning yourself. You weren't meant to be a copy. You weren't meant to compete with someone else's calling. You were meant to stand in your own uniqueness and move in your own power. And when you really focus on yourself, you realize that the only person you need to outgrow is the version of you from yesterday. That's the only race that matters. That's the only competition worth entering, becoming better, wiser, stronger than you were before. It's not easy. In a world that constantly shoves other people's lives in front of your face on social media, in conversations, even in church, it's easy to feel like you're behind. But behind compared to what? There's no universal clock that everyone's supposed to follow. There's no perfect timeline that guarantees fulfillment. Some people don't find their purpose until they're 40, 50, 60, even 60s. Others step into it early, but have to spend years building the foundation. Either way, it's not a race, it's a process. And the only way to honor that process is to focus inward. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means being honest with yourself. It means knowing when your jealousy is actually just a signal that you've stopped appreciating your own growth. It means recognizing when your scrolling is actually just you avoiding the work. It means pulling back, centering your thoughts, and reminding yourself of what you've been called to do, because your calling won't look like anyone else's, and that's the beauty of it. You don't need to go viral to be valuable. You don't need the same platform, paycheck, or praise that someone else has in order to live a meaningful life. What you need is alignment. You need to wake up each day and say, I'm focused on building what God gave me. I'm focused on becoming the best version of who I was created to be. That's the real measure of success. And when you begin to live like that, you find peace, you find joy, you find contentment, not because everything around you is perfect, but because your perspective has shifted. You start making decisions that align with your values, not your insecurities. You stop chasing what looks good and start choosing what feels right. You begin to walk with purpose, speak with clarity, and live with peace. That's what happens when you focus on yourself. You no longer need to prove anything to anyone. Your progress is no longer loud, it's steady, it's intentional, it's rooted. And when others rise, you won't feel threatened. You'll feel inspired. because your identity isn't threatened by someone else's breakthrough. It's strengthened by your own consistency. That's when everything begins to fall into place, not all at once and not without struggle, but steadily, surely, and in the exact way it was meant to. Keep your eyes on your path. Everything is falling into place. There comes a point in your journey when you realize that doing more isn't the same as becoming more. That no matter how much you hustle, grind, and strive, if you're not aligned spiritually, emotionally, mentally, then all that effort feels like spinning your wheels in the mud. But when you focus on yourself, when you take time to really understand who you are, what you value, and where you're going, something powerful begins to happen. You stop forcing results. You start flowing in alignment. And when you find alignment, acceleration follows. Alignment isn't just about setting goals. It's about aligning your goals with your purpose, your actions with your values, your habits with your future. Too many people are exhausted, not because they're doing too much, but because they're doing too much of the wrong thing. They're living out of sync with who they truly are. They're saying yes to everything, trying to please everyone, chasing things deep down, they're drained because they're out of alignment. So when you focus on yourself, you begin to filter your choices differently. You ask better questions. Is this right for me? Does this move me forward? Is this aligned with the life I'm building? You no longer chase what looks good to the world. You pursue what feels right in your spirit. That's what alignment is. And when you begin to live from that place, things start clicking. Decisions become clearer. Doors begin to open, not because you kicked them down, but because you're finally standing where you're supposed to be. That kind of clarity doesn't come from chaos. It comes from consistency. It comes from knowing your values and refusing to compromise them. It comes from doing the work, even when it's invisible. Focusing on yourself gives you that space to realign. It lets you step back, reflect, adjust, and move forward with confidence. You start walking in rhythm with your purpose instead of running towards someone else. People will often tell you to move faster, work harder, do more. But acceleration isn't about speed, it's about direction. A fast car going the wrong way is still off course. What you need is not just more energy, it's more alignment. Because when you're aligned, momentum finds you. You don't have to chase favor. You don't have to beg for clarity. You begin to attract the things that match your energy, your vision, your calling. And here's the key. Alignment doesn't eliminate resistance. It strengthens your resilience. It helps you endure hard seasons because you know you're moving in the right direction. Even when progress is slow, you stay grounded. Even when doors close, you don't crumble. Why? Because your confidence isn't in the outcome. It's in the alignment. You trust that as long as you're faithful to the process, everything else will come together in time. There's a quiet power that comes from living in alignment. You're no longer swayed by every opinion, no longer thrown off by every obstacle. You're anchored, rooted, focused. And from that place, you build a life that's not just successful by the world's standards, but meaningful by your own. That's the kind of life that lasts. That's the kind of life that leaves a legacy. When you focus on yourself, you create space to hear from God, to connect with your calling, to operate from purpose instead of pressure. You learn to trust divine timing, to release control, to flow with wisdom. And in that flow, things begin to accelerate, not by striving, but by surrender. Not by chasing, but by becoming. Becoming someone who is ready for the blessings they've been praying for. Someone who can carry the weight of what's coming without collapsing under it. The truth is, when you live out of alignment, everything feels harder. You feel like you're pushing uphill, constantly questioning, constantly second guessing. But when you come back to center, when you realign your actions with your purpose, everything starts to work together. Your peace increases, your energy multiplies, your progress becomes sustainable. And the people around you start to notice, not because you're louder, but because you're grounded. There's nothing more powerful than a person who knows who they are, what they're called to do, and is living it out with focus and intention. That's what happens when you align your life with your purpose. That's what happens when you focus on yourself, not out of pride, but out of obedience to the life you were created to live.